The Benefits of Being an Octopus, Chapter 11. On the way to my bus stop on Wednesday, I'm running my fingers through my hair because I didn't have time to brush it, when I see Silas coming down the steps of his trailer. Except his dad's truck isn't in the driveway like it usually is. "Where's your truck?" Silas shakes his head and stares at the ground in front of him. "Still at the police station," he mumbles. "What? Is everything okay?" "Yeah. Except that one of the teachers at school called the police when she saw our shotgun in the back of our truck when my dad was picking me up after school." Silas is walking fast, and I hustle to catch up to him. "What happened?" I ask. "The police were nice enough. They got it that he was picking me up to go hunting. They just had to hold the truck overnight for security purposes. But at least they gave us a ride to the woods around Squaretail Brook so we could go hunting, and my dad and I had a great time anyway. Still, that teacher wasn't a fan of hunting." Silas shakes his head. "If he eats meat, he sure isn't thinking about where it comes from." "You're going to keep hunting though, right?" "Of course I am." I nod. "You better." I bite back a smile. "What'd you find?" Silas stares up into the white sky. More coyote tracks, porcupine scat, and the newest snow was so dry that whenever some slid off the high tree branch, it was like shining bits of gold shimmering down in the sunlight. I stare at Silas. I get why he keeps his mouth shut as soon as he's around other kids. Otherwise, people would stand in line just to beat him up. "No signs of the bobcat." Silas grins. "Not yet." On the bus, I ignore the 8th grade boy who pretend coughs some comment I can't understand and lean my face against the window. I can see Matt's house as soon as we turn the corner onto his street. His front door is open, and when the bus pulls up in front of his house, I can make out his mom in the doorway with him, pushing a travel mug into his hand. She gives him a kiss on the cheek just as he heads out toward the bus. "Is that coffee?" someone calls as Matt makes his way down the aisle of the bus. "Yeah, right," Matt says. "Banana peanut butter smoothie. I was up late working on that essay for social studies, and I didn't have time for breakfast." I try to picture my mom pulling herself out of bed to make me a smoothie because I'm tired in the morning. As if she wasn't exhausted. As if she didn't have to take care of Hector. As if Frank wouldn't throw a fit for getting woken up by a blender. As if we had a working blender. As if we had bananas. As if. The 7th grade hallway is already jam-packed with bodies and backpacks when I arrive. As I make my way through the sea of shrieks and the rattle of lockers slamming shut, the slits of my octopus eyes stay horizontal. Octopuses have these little sacs called statocysts that respond to motion and gravity so that their eyes can be totally unfazed, totally steady. It doesn't matter if the current whips all around and sends my tentacles off in some random direction. My eyes are always right side up, never upside down. Fuchsia is waiting for me at my locker wearing her black painted jeans and shirt with intentional holes. When I get to my locker, she has her eyes closed as though she wasn't just watching me make my way through the hallway. She lets out a huge sigh. "What's wrong?" I ask. She opens one eye. "Oh, hey," she says. "When'd you get here?" As though she wasn't just watching me. She's definitely not the Fuchsia who was dancing around the game room on Sunday. I start opening my locker. She sighs again and rolls her eyes so slowly and dramatically that I wonder if her eyeballs are going to roll into the back of her head. She does not exactly have steady horizontal octopus eyes. I give up. "What's wrong?" I ask again. "It's all stupid." I jiggle my locker open. "What is?" I hang up my coat while I wait for an answer, but she doesn't say anything. I look at her and she's twisting up a flyer someone was handing out about some student council fundraiser. The top of it says something about buying Valentine's Day carnations for your sweeties and besties. Mostly, though, she looks like she's going to throw up. I push my locker shut. "What's going on?" "Crystal and her goo brain decided we might be moving again." "What?" I say. "To where?" "Just down the street like we always do. I guess there's some guy, Michael, who's going to cut us a better deal on rent, but Fuchsia glares into my locker like it's Crystal's gooey brain. I don't want to move again. And this Michael guy seems super sketch. He started hanging around Crystal at the bottle deposit a few weeks ago. Then he offered to give her a ride to Walmart and she let him. She had enough sense not let him drive her home afterwards. But here we are 3 weeks later, and who cares if sketchy Michael doesn't know where we live, because soon we're going to be moving into his very own sketchy apartment. Tell your mom you don't want to go. Fuchsia shakes her head. She waved some stupid custody paperwork in my face and said I've got to do what she says. Fuchsia rips a piece off the flyer. That's what she thinks. Crystal can turn into a full-on defensive lineman when she wants to. Like when she and my mom had the big falling out that ended their friendship. It was like Crystal tucked her head and tried to plow my mom right over. Jealous, my mom said afterward. And that's why you don't poke your nose in other people's business. And Lenny added plenty of anti-Crystal words of his own. Fuchsia turned around and kicks the locker she's been leaning against. And she doesn't think I'd be able to bring Jane Kitty with me because this Michael guy doesn't like cats. I shut my locker. What are you going to do? Fuchsia rips off another section of the flyer and starts balling it up between her fingers. She said she'd call the cops on me if I refused. I take a deep breath. Are you sure this Michael isn't an okay guy? Have you seen him being sketchy? I can tell. He's got sketch written all over him. Do you want to sign up to move in with him instead? Maybe it won't be so bad, I say. Maybe he'll fall in love with Jane Kitty just like you did. You could even get your own room. Yeah, right. She glares at me like I'm the one forcing her to move. I'll make sure you're the first to know I do. I try to keep my octopus eyes as steady as possible. Well, what do you want me to... But Fuchsia cuts me off. You know, maybe Crystal isn't the only one who can make a big deal phone call, because all I have to do is call that DCF person and start telling them stuff. Her eyes light up. You know, I could tell her that. I could tell her that she's in for it if she goes ahead with this. Several lockers down, I hear laughter, and I turn to see a bunch of boys with Matt in the middle telling some joke. And then if, Fuchsia is saying, wait, what are you looking at? I quickly look away from the group of boys. Nothing? Oh, Fuchsia throws a little paper ball at me. I was totally right, wasn't I? You do have some boy thing going on. I do not. Say it then, she says. Say what? Say, there is not a single boy in this hallway that I could be interested in. You're ridiculous. And too loud. Say it. You should get going to your homeroom, I say. Aren't you going to get a detention if you're late again? Say it. I shake my head and walk away past the boys without looking at a single one of them. You didn't say it, Fuchsia calls after me. Fuchsia might have been the only girl willing to be friends with me when I moved back to town in 5th grade, but she doesn't always make it easy. During this week's ACE period, Ms. Rochambeau is going on and on about supporting her position with evidence. Too bad I'm pretty clear in my position already. It's, I don't belong in ACE period debate club. And I've got plenty of evidence to back it up. Evidence number 1. Hermit crabs in the science classroom don't look down on me. The cat drawing girl, whose name is apparently Lydia, is another story. I'm pretty sure she keeps shifting her notebook away from me. Matt hasn't even noticed I'm here. Evidence number 2. The hermit crabs need me because no one deserves to live in a filthy tank. And Lydia and Matt definitely don't need me. Evidence number 3. I stop when I realize Ms. Rochambeau is passing out worksheets. I sneak a peek at Lydia and then a super quick one at Matt. Both of them are already starting to read it. Hopefully this can be like group work during regular classes where the other 2 people do the talking and my contribution is to not yell or throw up on anything. And look, 20 minutes later when it's the end of ACE period, my worksheet is throw up free. Victory is mine. And I don't care that Ms. Rochambeau raises her eyebrows when she picks up my worksheet and it's blank. I'm here, aren't I? No one can force me to do more than that. 2 periods later is social studies. And Ms. Rochambeau is coming around to collect an essay that's due that I've yet again done a wonderful job of not doing. Zoe, she whispers when she gets to my desk, and I don't have anything to turn in. I'd like you to stay after class so we can talk. I don't say a word or even nod, but she walks away like I've agreed to it. Sure enough, when there's just a few minutes left of my class and my tentacles start working to gather up my papers, Ms. Rochambeau, who has been reading us excerpts from Daniel Webster's, Henry Clay's, and John Calhoun's speeches in Congress about the Compromise of 1850, wanders over to my desk without missing a beat and rests her hand on my notebook. It doesn't matter how many tentacles I have. She's not going to let me pack up my notebook. When the class has been dismissed and I'm still in my seat, Ms. Rochambeau finally removes her hand from my desk. Thank you for staying after, Zoe, she says. I didn't exactly have a choice. Ms. Rochambeau pulls the neighboring student desk over and sits down in it. Now, she says, her big earrings bouncing off the collar of a different turtleneck sweater. We could talk about how much your grade will suffer if you don't turn in this reflection essay. But instead, I want to talk about something else. I want to talk about your participation in debate club. I watch her through the slits of my octopus eyes, nice and steady. I want to know why you're not trying. I glance at the clock. And I want to know what kind of person you want to be. I want to be the kind of person that doesn't have to sit here and have this conversation. What's your next class? She says. Computer tech, I say. So it's all the way down in the other wing. So I'd better leave right now. Great, she says without standing up. That means we have the next 43 minutes to dig into this. I have a prep period right now, and Mr. Roberts will definitely understand why you weren't able to be in his class today. I'll be happy to talk with him about it over lunch. It's like my octopus body has gotten trapped in a net, but there has to be an opening somewhere if I can just stay calm and avoid getting tangled up. Marcy, another teacher pops her head into the room. Do you have a minute? It's my opening. My tentacles spring back to life and I stand up from my chair. Sit back down, Ms. Rochambeau says to me. To the other teachers, she says, sorry, another time maybe. This is important. I slide back into my chair in a net, and now I'm getting poked with a stick. She even thinks it's important to poke me with a stick. Important! Me! Once the other teacher is gone, Ms. Rochambeau turns back to me. She says things, but I'm not listening. No one has ever connected me with being important. The things that they want me to do are important. Do my homework. Bring a pencil. Wear sneakers for PE. But this somehow feels different. Ms. Rochambeau has stopped talking and is looking like she's waiting for me to say something. When I don't, she says again, Zoe, what kind of person do you want to be? When I don't answer, I stare down at my notebook. What am I supposed to say to that? I don't know, I finally mumble. I wait for Ms. Rochambeau to say that's okay, because I don't know almost always gets a teacher to move on. But she doesn't. Instead, she stares at me harder and finally says, then I'm glad you have some time right now to think about it. I shift in my seat. Here, she says, stand up. I want you to come over here. She goes over to her desk in the front corner of the room and starts clearing off the top of it. She moves a pile of paper to the top of a filing cabinet and then pulls out the cushy rolling chair. Come sit, she says. At your desk? She nods. I want you to imagine you're an adult, and I want you to picture the life you want to have. Oh, and hold on. She bends down and rummages in one of the cupboards behind her desk until she pulls out a bag of pretzels. Good hard thinking is always a lot easier with food. I slowly make my way toward her desk. When I finally reach the cushy rolly chair, I look at her. Really? Really, she says. I sink down into it. I rest my arms on its armrests. I lean my head back. I survey the classroom like a kingdom, like all those hard plastic desks are my kingdom. I lean forward and take a pretzel. I'm ready to start telling myself a story about the pretzel-eating queen when Ms. Rochambeau takes a seat in the front row of student desks. Does it feel different there? She asks. I nod. I take another pretzel. Good, she says. That should help. Sometimes the walls of the hole we're in are too close for us to see anything else. I stop eating the pretzel. Are you saying I'm in a hole? Ms. Rochambeau doesn't move. Do you think you're in a hole? I feel my brow furrowing against my will. I need to be an expressionless wall that things just bounce off of like Silas. Or even better, so slimy that things slide right off like any good octopus. Because if people see that they're getting to you, they'll never let up. Of course not, I say quickly. I try to pretend that things are so easy right now that I could never even consider my life as a whole. Because it's like beautiful, flat, easy walking ground all the time now, right? Maybe some bumps along the way, but that's just like the beautiful rolling hills they show on the ads to remind people that they should come to Vermont on vacation. You know that the Ace Period Debate Club is ending and a new rotation starts next week, right? Do I know that? Of course I don't. But since I don't usually listen to the teacher, that makes sense. Ms. Rochambeau leans forward. The real debate club is going to be starting after school next week, and I want you to be a part of it. Because I've done such a great job during Ace Period? The crack slips out before I can stop it, but Ms. Rochambeau doesn't flinch. She just keeps staring me down. She can't be serious. But after school I need to pick up your brother and sister, right? She says. What time does the Head Start bus drop them off? About 3:55? Great. Debate club goes until 3:30, and then I can give you a ride right to their bus stop. I've checked to make sure that I could legally drive a student, and as long as your mom gives consent, it's fine. She'd be willing to be my personal driver? It's mind-blowing enough that I can almost forget that we're talking about staying after school for debate club. Almost. But not quite. We'll meet every day after school except for Tuesday when there's a faculty meeting. The tournament is at the beginning of March. She gives me a hard look. I look away. Zoe, only you can choose what kind of person you become. My eyes drift to the tops of the trees I can see out of the window. Bare branches, gray sky, nothing else. That assumes I have a choice, I say. Ms. Rochambeau practically leaps out of her seat. But you do have a choice. You make choices every day. And maybe you can't see how they could affect your future, but they do. She is quiet for a moment as she stands there. I want you to know, she finally continues, that I was the first person in my family to graduate high school and go to college. Since life isn't fair, it's often up to us to balance it out. I look at her. She's looking back at me like she's trying to explode me with her eyes. What made the difference for me, she says, was the advice someone gave to me back when I was in middle school. I still don't believe she was like me. It wasn't fair, and it wasn't easy, she continues, but it was the only way forward if I wanted a future for myself. I want to look away, but I also want to know what they said. What was it? She chews on her lip without taking her eyes off me. I'll tell it to you, and then I'm going to leave you alone for the rest of the period. Okay. Are you ready? She asks. I nod. You sure? I nod again. Well, here it is. She stands up. Suck it up. Then she picks up a folder of papers and walks out of the room.